I really loved what Jim Curtin had to say here. He's weighing in on whether teams should release their younger players to play in the U20 World Cup, okay? And our first game is coming up on May 20th against Ecuador, and the tournament got moved from Indonesia to Argentina. So Ecuador is going to be a pretty tough test, and I think maybe the hardest game in our group. So that first game is going to be super important. But Jim Curtin said this: we're not Spain. We're not Germany. We're not Argentina. We haven't won a World Cup ever. Let's try to win every competition at the youth level and show we have great players, because we do. Rather than the confusion of acting like we are those big countries, I think sometimes you'll hear it from different sporting directors or coaches, and they'll say things like development. But then it comes time and they say, well, I can't sacrifice points here or I'll get fired or whatever may happen. I think we all need to be in this together to really be about it and not just talk about it. Now Philadelphia Union are releasing their players to play in the U20 World Cup that are being picked to play. Chicago Fire, who we just mentioned with Ezra, are blocking Brian Gutirrez, 19-year-old, and Chris Brady, goalkeeper, 19-year-old, from playing. Chicago Fire said they really wanted to go, and they expressed that. We didn't want to disappoint them or the federation, but the priority in the situation is the Chicago Fire. Now, this isn't isolated to MLS. You got Hajduk Split in Croatia who blocked Rokas Pukstas from being able to play as well. Now, these are all three players that are mentioned are all first-team players. Like, they're playing regular minutes. They're not just sitting on the bench. So I can get that side of it a little bit. But I'm with Jim Curtin here. Shout out to JC, another JC, because I think he's spot on. We all have to be in this together, and I think it doesn't feel that way in a lot of different ways in a lot of parts of the game in this country. Heath, your turn.
I fully agree with that. I don't think Jim Curtin's done a great job over the last 2 years of following through on the model of playing young players as much as I think the Philadelphia Union have presented, right? Putting the investment in the academy.
True.
I think that's one thing. So I think it's a little bit of like kind of put your money where your mouth is internally based on your own model. But I fully agree with him in his comment.
But he's not blocking players as it pertains to this.
As it pertains to this, but I fully agree with him that he's not blocking players. This is a great opportunity. And if you're Philadelphia Union, it goes back to Charlie's point a while ago when we were talking about Jalen Neal, which is, hey, LA Galaxy, you're not really about developing players right now, or you don't have this long pipeline of players. You've got a super talented guy. Your team is in a little bit of trouble. Jalen Neal didn't start the last game. He came in early from an injury. But that's an opportunity for you to move a player like that. So if your emphasis isn't on just developing and playing young players within your club, you have an opportunity to put him in a shop window. And it's the one time where every scout in the world with a budget, with a checkbook, is going to be watching these players in intense environment over multiple games to be able to make decisions. And you could take a Jalen Neal, he can up his value in 3 matches and be on his way out, right? Which can be great. Philadelphia Union, that's part of their model. Why would they not want to put them in the shop window to say, okay, we've got players coming in. We don't have room for them on the field right now. We've got to move players on, right? So let's put them into this position. And part of that's the business side, but the other side is like Jim Curtin said, we haven't won that. So let's release our players. I'm not sure why Hajduk Split's not doing it. They're 10 points off the table.
Well,
they might have a
they're in the Croatian Cup final, and they want him to be sharp for the Croatian
There's a
Cup
little
final.
bit of value in some of those types of things. I get it, right? If you're a player playing in a massive club in these types of environments, I don't know what the Chicago Fire benefits by not releasing players. I get it's a tense time, but it sounds like there's people making decisions that don't know what they're doing to make a decision like that about these players and their futures. That's my take on it.
And I think I've made my take and feel about this situation loud and clear. If you have a top talent young player who can play in a World Cup, given the experiences they'll get from this World Cup.
Exactly, Charlie. Thank you.
Why in the hell would you prevent a kid from going to compete with the world's best when you don't play with a promotion relegation? What does it matter? If you're depending on an 18-year-old American kid in MLS, then you have bigger issues. You can't allow him to go and get an incredible once-in-a-lifetime experience to play in an under-20 World Cup with some of the best players in the world, to also bond with some of your fellow Americans that are playing at that level, so that you keep going down the path and you already have this chemistry and symmetry within the locker room with what it means to play for your country with pride. And MLS is a selling league. You are supposed to sell these players. How do you get them in front of the world's eyes? By playing in a World Cup, by playing against the world's best and showing the world's best who we are, how we're developing players. That's what it's about. Why in the hell is Chicago Fire coming out early like this too and saying, don't even ask, they're not going? I get it if you had a number of injuries.
Listen, Atlanta United,
you're like last minute, you're like, okay, sorry, we have to block it because we got 3, 4, 5 players injured and we need them. I'm sorry, but we need them. And you say, okay, I understand, fine. And the player will still be down. But to come out already and say, nope, they're not going, priorities with the Chicago Fire. What? Since when?
So I think I'm with you. No, you can drop the mic. You can. You're definitely triggered, and I'm triggered with you.
Jimmy, let me ask you something real quick. It might feed into the thought you're going to make. Do you think that there was a conversation with U.S. Soccer of saying, well, are my guys going to play? Because there is also some argument to say, well, why do you need my 18 to 20 on your roster? Like, why do you need them? He plays for me, or I need them here, and you're going to ride them on the bench, or they're not in your big plans. Do you think that conversation takes place? Because
I don't know.
It seems like there are some factors that would create some tension in an argument, but overall,
even so, if you're a substitute, you're telling me I'm not going to let the player go just in case you know the game, injury, a red card. The player gets a chance and boom, gone, and you're playing. I go back to the Olympics. You don't have to be released for the Olympics. My club, I was a starter on my club. I was the only goal scorer for my team in Hammarby in Sweden. And there's promotion and relegation. They let me go. You know why? And I wasn't starting. We had Brian McBride and Freddie Adu. Those were the 2 starters. Josie and I were on the bench. So my coach said, and the club, go out and get that experience. It's a once in a lifetime. It's Olympics. I know you're not going to be slated to start, but we feel that if you do get your opportunity, you will show well. And I did. It took 3 games to finally get in, but it happened, and I played well. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get us through, but hey, it's the experience. It's amazing. You don't take that from a kid. You don't take that from a business perspective.
Okay,
your profit. You could have a massive profit from that.
I actually want to ask, I would love to have a whole podcast on how your thoughts about not starting throughout the Olympics and then finally getting your chance. But we'll leave that aside. Imagine if Hammarby didn't let you go. What kind of resentment would you have harbored as a player?
I would be your whole life you worked to eventually play in a World Cup, but also in Olympics. The Olympics is massive in our country. I remember the first one was 1996 that I watched that really intently, and that dream is there. Oh my God, one day I want to represent my country. I want to play in an Olympics. I want to get on a cereal box. I want to have a gold medal. I want to be able to do those things. That moment is finally there. You earned it. And your club says no. Oh,
I get it. I would be super. I would be angry.
You guys want a 96 fun fact from the Olympics? My little brother during the McDonald's Monopoly games, they ran a promotion with the 96.
I remember,
Olympics, and my brother won a year supply of Coke.
No way.
That's pretty cool.
I thought they were going to come with like a big old truck and be like, here's your, Coke products for a year. But they gave us we were living in Oregon at the time where you have to pay like the redemption value when you buy something. So it wasn't like fully free, but they sent us coupons of 52 12 packs.
No way.
So we got 52 12 packs, and then you had to pay I think it was like 5 or 10 cents per can when you'd go and do it, but you get a 12 pack for $1. And for a year, dude, crazy, right?
Incredible as a kid.
Crazy. Dude,
I
still remember we're watching the Olympics, hanging out, and my brother peels it off of the French fry thing and looks at it. He's like, your supply of Coke. And I'm like, you know how it is. You're like, dude, shut up. And then all of a sudden he's like, dude, I seriously want it. It's like, crazy, right?
You're trying to build your the boards, trying to collect all of them.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to collect all of them. But what's crazy is that's the closest thing I ever got to the Olympics, Charlie.